attentive listeners will be able to spot that I'm a woman and you're a man.
This is true.
A lot of conversations around health are often divided up between men's issues and women's issues.
Yeah, and I think I would imagine there's plenty of podcasts about midlife women, things like menopause. I know there's quite a few ones aimed at blokes, kind of mental health wise, but we've very consciously wanted to have a male and female presenter on Sniper's Alley talking about male and female stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of things you and I have in common about aging. When we talk about being in our 50s, there are a lot of things that happen to everybody in their 50s, but there are particular things that happen to us because we are women or because we are men.
Right. And so one of the ideas behind Sniper's Alley was that I, as a bloke, I'm very unlikely to listen to a women's podcast about menopause. However, having a wife, it would be handy for me to know more stuff about that.
And this is definitely the subject of this episode, because this was actually all new to me. And this is a male issue that I really had very, very, very wafer thin understanding about.
Yeah, and you say that. And the interesting thing, I think, as well, is I possess a prostate. I that's about as intimate as I am with it, to be that knowledge. Do you know what I mean? And this is kind of part of the reason for talking to James, who you hear from in a minute, is that, you know, as a middle-aged bloke, prostate should be an issue. It should be something that's on my radar. And it kind of hasn't really been. And as you're going to hear in a minute from James, I don't think it was really on his radar too. And then it became very much on his radar.
Yeah. And I mean, when I think about the men in my life that I love, you know, my husband and my brothers and things like that, and if I think about them, the thing I think about usually are things like stress, anxiety, heart attacks, just as you were just saying, mental health issues. And now I know so much more about this. And honestly, I don't think they know either. So I really hope people get a lot out of this. James is James is lovely, first of all, but he is so open and honest about everything that happened to him. And I can only see it as being a useful listen for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the case. I think at the very, very least, it's thought-provoking. And I think more likely it'll provoke a bit of action, to be honest, in quite a lot of, certainly in the men listening. So, yeah, that's very briefly the idea behind Sniper's Alley is that we didn't want to go down male or female lines. It's instead of niching down, basically we want our target audience is everyone between about 45 and 65, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So male, female, whatever. Just
we're all in Sniper's Alley together. I think we're in it together.
So this is wonderful. We've just done the interview with James, so we know what's coming up. He does mention at one point about the Prostate Cancer UK March for Men, and he says it's coming up. By the time this podcast goes out, it will have happened, but we will put a link to Prostate Cancer UK in the podcast description. You can donate there, and you can also, James mentions a little online quiz. It only takes 30 seconds or so to assess your risk of prostate cancer, and we'll put a link to that in there as well. So let's hear from James. James Richardson, he's 55. He lives in Suffolk, and he has got a story about his experience of prostate cancer. That, I mean, this interview it sounds like a cliche, but we have laughter and tears, don't we? It's got the works.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's James, and this is his story.
I'd gone to the doctors because I was having my cholesterol checked, and I had raised cholesterol, and they suggested that I go on statins. And I said, well, look, I'd rather, maybe exercise a bit more, change my diet and try and bring it down that way than go on sort of regular medication. So I was due to go back. They said, come back in 3 months and we'll have another look. And in that window, the plumber we use came, and he told my wife that he'd just been treated for prostate cancer. And he said, your husband's a similar age to me. He should really get himself checked out. So Jan said, I really want you to go and do it. So I rang the doctors and said, I'm due to come in for a blood test on such and such a date. can have a PSA test. So the PSA test is they take your bloods, and if you're 3 or below, you're fine. Anything above 3, they start to inquire and check out. So I rang the doctor, said, could I have the PSA test? And the receptionist said, no, we don't do PSA tests on request. And I said, well, why not? She said, no, we only do it if you've got symptoms. So I said, okay, I've got symptoms. And they said, what are the symptoms then? And I just knew that they were, usually men, you go for a wee a lot more of an evening at night. So I said, well, I've been weeing a lot more during the night. And also my dad had it, which he did have. He was treated for prostate cancer. So I said, okay. So I went in, had the test, and it came out as just over 7.5. So it was double the limit that they like. So it's, they said, we'd like you to come in for an examination, which is the finger up the bum. So went in, had that, and the GP said, I can't confirm it now, I can't officially tell you. He said, but I think you'll be told you've got prostate cancer. He said, so the next stage from here is we have an MRI, and if the MRI shows any abnormalities, you'll go for a biopsy, and that will dictate if you have or haven't. So left the doctor's surgery, came home, told my wife that was really one of the, because they hadn't said you've definitely got it, so there's still a degree of hope / ambiguity about it. But I told my wife that was all a bit upsetting. So you're kind of in limbo land until you go for your MRI. So the MRI is where you sort of lay on a bed and go in a tunnel and they scan over your groin area. And then about 2 weeks later, they came back and said, we've spotted abnormalities. So we then go for the biopsy. So if anyone is listening to this and they go for a biopsy, you have a choice. You can be put to sleep for it, or they can numb your pain. So by numbing the pain was a total of 4 injections in my perineum. And that was, I cannot tell you how, if that never, ever happens again, I won't be upset. Yeah, that was just ridiculous.
I know people can't see us, but everybody is wincing at the moment. Jeez.
Yeah, and so they put a probe inside and they basically cut slices out your prostate, and they take those and then they assess them. So had the biopsy, and then got a phone call or an email to say, could you come to the hospital? We've got your results. We'll talk them through. So that was about another 2 or 3 weeks. So it's gone on about around 3 months from the beginning to that point. Went into the hospital, and the nurse going through called me. And as we walked through, she said to one of her colleagues, is the quiet room free? And I thought, I don't want to go in the quiet room. I don't want to be in this world. This is not where I want to be. So you go in, and it was the typical table with a box of tissues, and there was a folder. And the nurse and the doctor came in and sat down and said, very sorry, Mr. Richardson, but we have to tell you that you have prostate cancer. So it wasn't a shock. They'd been from the GP's initial sort of probe to saying, yeah, I think you're going to have it to then. So I wasn't surprised. It wasn't out of the blue or anything like that. Now, when you're diagnosed with prostate cancer, you're given what's called a Gleason score, and that dictates whether you're the aggression, how aggressive the cancer is, how many tumours there are, whether it's localised or whether it's breached and is outside the prostate. So my biggest concern was, I was fairly sure I had it because I've been told so. Is it contained in the prostate, or has it has it got out? Because right with your prostate, for those listening that don't know, you've got your bladder, then just under your bladder is your prostate. It's like a little sort of kidney bean type shape, and that's under there. So bladder cancer is a very different cancer to prostate cancer. And your prostate is also very close to your lymph nodes. And if the cancer gets in there, then that's a very, very different kettle of fish. So the first thing I asked was, is it contained in the prostate? Which they confirmed it was. So that's right. Okay. So that was a relief. They said no. So up to a Gleason score 5, I'm sure a surgeon or a doctor would give a far more detailed description, but up to 5, you're kind of all right. It's like negligible. It's there. There's a cancer there, but it's not growing too fast or at all. It's just detected. A Gleason score 6 it's they can't ignore it. They have to monitor it. It means you've got a noticeable tumour, but it's not growing particularly quickly. So what the NHS like to do in that instance is just observe it. They send you away, and you go back every sort of 3 months or 6 months for your PSA blood test. And if your PSA reading suddenly starts to escalate, they would then do another biopsy. Again, I can't imagine anything worse, having had one. And that would then dictate. But they didn't want to do anything. They weren't proactive. They didn't want to do anything about it. They said, if you just go away and come back in 3 months and we'll do another reading. So I came home. Jan and I discussed it. I'd been my approach was I wanted it out. If it was cancer, it was never, if you've got a cancer in you, it's never going to serve you well. It's never going to get better. So my thought had always been, I want it removed. But the NHS had said, no, we wouldn't operate, we'll just monitor. So I'm quite lucky in the company I work for, we've got health insurance. And this is quite funny because this is called Sniper's Alley, but one of the investment managers that I work with, a guy called Jim Mackey, he's wonderful. He's an incredible man. He found out that I've been diagnosed and he emailed me and said, could I give you a call? So we had a chat and he said, look, I went through this time last year. He said, I went through a prostatectomy, and he said, James, you're in your mid-50s, mate. He said, you're in Sniper's Alley now. Which for me was, I couldn't believe it when, I found out that you wanted to have a chat and the name of it. So I think it's a fantastic name. And it really, really accurately describes where we're all at this age group. So he said he had a surgeon at the London clinic, and he said, I'll give you his name, have a chat with him, get a second opinion. So I had a Teams meeting with this guy. It was absolutely wonderful. And he said, look, if it is a Gleason score 6, you don't have to do anything. There's no reason to be overly concerned. But he said, what I'll do is I'll get your biopsy, I'll get your MRI scan, and then he got his team to assess those. He said, then I'll come back to you. And he said it would be about 2 weeks. And just over a week in, I got an email that said, I'd like to speak to you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And it was the tone of it that I just thought, the others have been quite soft and fluffy, and that was quite direct. So I had a meeting with him, and he said, James, our specialists have had a look, and we spotted a second tumour. And this tumour's at the top, and at the top of these, where sort of near to where your bladder then is. He said, and also your Gleason score is not 6, it's 7, which means it's not a lazy cancer. It's a bit more, got a bit more life about it. So he said, given our conversation and you saying that you would want it removed, I would suggest we move forward with that. So we ran through 2 main outcomes of a chap having a prostate removed is erectile dysfunction and incontinence. And the severity of that is largely dictated by how delicate the surgeon is. It's all to do with the nerve damage. So I came off the call and I went down to my wife and said, I've got another tumour. The first, the NHS only found one. There's a second one, and it's Gleason score 7. It's more aggressive. So she was angry. She was, really, really cross. I was at that point, and throughout all of it, there were times when it felt like I was just watching this go on. It didn't really feel like I was in it. I was, and I'd be driving back from an appointment and think, you've got cancer. You've been diagnosed with cancer. It just didn't. It felt really, really unreal. Yeah, like detached from it. So they came back, and they were wonderful. They got me in. So I went up on I had my operation on the 24th of March. Was in for 3 days, and then came home. And I know people watching this can't see, or listening to this can't see me, but I think it's quite obvious I'm not an alpha male. I'm not a very roughy, tufty bloke. And I thought I was going to be in real pain. I don't like pain. And I'm quite happy to tell people when I'm in pain. So I thought I was going to be in an awful lot of pain. And they did keyhole surgery across the stomach. So they go in 6 incisions across your stomach. And they put in air pipes and sort of blow you up so you're expanded. So that's how they can then get in and So they did that. Now, the reason I tell you that is when they come out, they try and get all the air out, but the air gets trapped up here. So pain-wise, the worst pain was like the pain trapped in my shoulders and the wind round there, and that was really uncomfortable. The incisions across my tummy, the doctor, he said to me, it'll. I mean, I've no idea what it feels like to do 1,000 sit-ups, but he said it will feel like you've done 1,000 sit-ups. Your muscles will just be really, really tight, which they were, and that was all okay. The catheter, that was that was really uncomfortable. Nothing should go up there, at all. That was really uncomfortable. The fatigue in the first 2 weeks following the operation was, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I'm not one to sleep during the day, but I was sleeping on and off all day for about 2 weeks. And then I sort of came out the other side and had more about me about week sort of 4. And then week 6, I was fine and I was back to work. And then about 2 weeks ago, I went for my last blood test and got the all clear. And I've now got a PSA reading of 0.2, which is, to say is a relief would be a massive understatement. So that was the journey.
Wow. I mean, first of all, thanks for sharing it so
not at all
eloquently and honestly. It's, I mean, the thing that strikes me is there's so many of those kind of sliding door moments of what had the plumber not said anything, had you not had the insurance at work. I mean, there's all these moments that have led to getting to where you are now, isn't there?
Absolutely. And since then, I sort of had I promised myself I wouldn't be overly evangelical, and any chap that was like in his 50s, I wasn't going to grab and tell them they needed to go and have the test. But I also, and I didn't want to be telling people so it sounded like I was going for like a pity party that I wanted, because I didn't want any of that at all. But one of the things that you couldn't, because I've been off for so long, or when I was about to go off, I had to ring all the clients that I was due to see in that window, that 5-6 week window when I was off, to say, look, I can't come and do your review. I can't do the appointment. So we either get another advisor or I'll see you when I come back. And then, so a number would ask, and I thought, well, I won't, I'm not embarrassed about it. I was very comfortable talking about it. So I would just say, sadly, I've been diagnosed with prostate cancer. They seem to think it's called early doors. So I'm just, rather than mess around, I'm going to go in and have it removed. And one of my clients texted me a couple of days later saying, I've booked my PSA reading. And he's in the same area as me. So he's in Alton Broad, which is just down the road from me. We went to the same hospital to have his done. And he came out and he had a Gleason score of 11. Sorry, a PSA score of 11, so it should be 3. Mine was 7, his was 11. He had a Gleason score of 8, which is very, very dangerous. They then had to do scans of his bone because they weren't sure if how impactful it had been. And he's had his operation now and he's waiting. And again, he hadn't, just like me, he had no symptoms. He wasn't weeing more at night. The symptoms are, generally speaking, is weeing more at night and getting pains in your back. I didn't have any of those, and neither did he. So I am now preaching to anyone that will listen is just get it done, because it's generally speaking, chaps die with it, not of it. It's one of the most easily treated cancers, but only if it's caught soon. Because of where it is, it's located in that dreadful place right near the lymph nodes, right near your bladder. If it breaches that, then it's the difference between preventative care and palliative care. So they're just going for the sake of a blood test, and they'll tell you, fine, come back in 6 months or come back in a year. That's all you need to do. But I'd implore anyone listening, any chap in 50 years or above, if you're black, if you've got a brother or a father that's had prostate cancer, just go and get the blood test done.
I think that's a really important point. I don't think many people realise as well is that it's 1 in 8, isn't it, for the general population? But if you come from an African or Caribbean background, it's 1 in 4.
Absolutely. So it's frightening, and I didn't really know. I mean, my dad was diagnosed with it, and he was treated years ago. So I was more aware of it than maybe some, but I still didn't really know the stats And also the fact that, because when I had it, I found myself, when people knew, saying, oh, yeah, it's only prostate cancer. Like I felt like I needed to, in some way, sort of play it down because it wasn't one of the bad ones, But I've read more and more about it. And as I say, it's caught early, it's great. It can be treated. But if it breaches the prostate, then it is a very, very different game.
I think you kind of alluded to it there, James, about what your sort of knowledge of this was, before this all happened. And, I'm 52, I'm a bloke. My sum total of prostate knowledge is probably that I knew it kind of lived up your arse somewhere.
Yeah.
The fingers were involved if you go to the doctors, and it can become cancerous. And, that is my TED talk on prostates. It's not very good, really, is it? And yet it's something that is so important to look out for, as you say. And yeah, I don't know why that is. I don't know whether it comes into, this kind of stereotype of blokes being useless at, only going to the doctors if a limb falls off or something. I don't know why that's the case.
Yeah, for me, it doesn't help when you see on the news that they voted against there being screening for people. That's just fucking ludicrous. It's just mental. That really angers me. I think chaps generally do maybe play it down. Sometimes it might be fear of, what they don't know can't hurt them. But I think there should be a lot more information out there for men to not feel embarrassed, to feel it's like part of a conversation. It's part of an overall like MOT, an annual MOT. Just pop in, get checked. Those things. It should be far more. Certainly I'm doing the March for Men this coming weekend, and so it's the first time I put anything on Facebook about it. I didn't put anything out there for like a social reason, but I thought I'm going to try and raise some money. So I did that, and I put in the post there that most of my mates on here are my age. The chaps are my age. So if you haven't, please go and get tested. And there's a little bio with some of the information on there, and I've had so much feedback saying they had no idea about it. So it's a shame, but hopefully, it will be made more commonplace, that people will be able to read more, access more information about it.
I think that's really true. And I think when we think about men's health, it's not the first thing that comes to mind. The first thing that comes to mind is often things like heart attacks and, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it's, as a woman, I'm very used to having to go and talk about kind of gynecological issues and all this sort of thing. It comes up an awful lot in the kind of the health conversation. And I'm guessing it just doesn't for men.
I think that's very true. There's no kind of like smear test sort of comparison or anything, is there? There's nothing. There's, I remember getting a text from the doctors at 40 and at 50 for the kind of MOT thing. But that's about it, really.
It's like James said, he was just talking about his cholesterol. He wasn't talking about other bits of his body. That was that's what you were heading to the GP for. And it was only because your plumber then said something that you kind of thought, actually, I might make another appointment.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, I think there should be more awareness raised, and there are so many different ways and because I've had it and I'm, been treated. And and it's like anything, isn't it? If you type something in your computer and the algorithms, you suddenly start getting a lot more information. That's great, but that relies on someone typing in their computer prostate cancer. I'm over 50. If they don't do that, they're generally speaking on a day-to-day basis, there isn't that much out there for people to draw their attention to it, which is just such a shame.
Yeah, we will put links to Prostate Cancer UK and some other links in the description with the podcast, actually. So I hope that at least a few people who haven't thought about this will now, thanks to you, James, think about it and act on it as well.
I was completely unaware that there were no symptoms at that stage. I absolutely assumed that when we agreed to talk that you would tell us about kind of getting up in the night to pee and all that kind of stuff, but no.
Yeah, absolutely nothing at all. There was, and I look back and think, well, had I just got used to it? But I wasn't getting up to go to the loo during the night more in any way,
So it wasn't something that you'd kind of talked yourself out of. It's like, oh, well, we all start needing the loo more at night. You hadn't done any of
No,
that. Wow.
no, none of that. No sort of pains in my back, nothing at all. And again, my client, the other guy that's got the far more aggressive, he said exactly the same. He said that I wasn't getting up during the night. I didn't have any of the symptoms. So that's alarming. But the Prostate Cancer UK has got it's a 30-second questionnaire. You can just put some information in, and it takes no time at all just to go in there, fill it in. So anyone listening, just give that a go. And if you go for the blood test, you get the okay, then you haven't got to worry about it again. Now you can just relax for another year.
Talk to me about how recovery has been, because you mentioned, you were back at work and within but that sounds to me like the physical recovery. Talk to me about the whole shebang, because recovery is a weird place, I think.
So in terms of the physical symptoms, so once the prostate's taken out, that's you can't have children anymore. That's the first thing. So men don't produce sperm after that. That's fine. Given my age, with children, we were never planning to have more children, so that was okay. The incontinence, because they've gone in there and damaged it, and that area all round your groin area, your bladder, is in trauma, so you've got no control if you want to go for a wee. Easily got round. You just buy these pads that you put on. And they're not, really obvious. You can wear them under jeans, anything like that. So that's fine. That for me was, I stopped wearing pads during the day. Probably about the end of May. Towards a couple of weeks ago, I didn't have to wear pads during the day at all. At night, when I spoke to the surgeon, he said it's not uncommon, but at night sometimes when you're asleep, because it's still, the nerve endings are still sort of mending themselves, every now and then there might be like a little electric shock. And I had one wet night, so I thought, well, so during the evening, so at the moment still I wear pads of an evening in bed, but during the day when I'm conscious and aware, and if you can feel that you need a wee, you can squeeze and stop, so that's fine. So that's that treated. The erectile dysfunction, I'm working hard on.
Excellent choice of phrase. Good.
Basically, there's no one at home for about 6 weeks, 8 weeks, nothing at all. But you kind of don't really mind because you've got the catheter in for a period of time. You're not thinking of anything around that region.
It's not the sexiest of thoughts anyway,
no, absolutely, no. But I think again, this is the other thing. The younger you are when you go in, if you've got it and you're treated, the more likely it is that you'll then have a more, back to the old sex life. The older you are, again, I've got clients that are in their 70s that had their operation in their 60s, and they said it's non-existent. If you want, you can be prescribed Viagra or the likes of. But that again, so the erectile dysfunction is almost back to how it was before. Emotionally, how it impacted me. The really weird thing was, I think I mentioned that sometimes it looked like I was just watching it happening, going on. It was done. I recovered, went back to work, and kind of thought, well, that's that. I parked it. It's over. I'm really lucky. As you mentioned earlier, Rob, the sliding doors thing. All of that was very fortuitous for me, and I'm cured. I'm cancer free. But it was when I wrote the bio for the March for Men and put it on Facebook. It absolutely floored me. And I was sitting in bed writing the thing, and I just burst out crying. Load of emotion came out. And it was like I was revisiting it again and going through it again. And I think I was then thinking about the impact it had had on Jan, my wife, my son, and my family, So I thought it hadn't really impacted me emotionally too much, but clearly it had.
But I think you'd be a very strange person if it hadn't.
Yeah.
This is a big thing, right? This is a big thing, and It is a big thing, and it's a big thing for your family, and it's a big thing for you, and it's a big thing for how we then go on and live. You have to occupy a place in recovery. You have to occupy a place where you acknowledge what's happened to you, but you find a way to still live, right?
Absolutely right. Yeah, spot on. So, and I've handed my intention to it. I'm retiring at the end of 2027, and I can't wait. I just thought I've got. When I sit with my clients and I'm planning their futures with them, I'm planning their retirement and stuff, and I'm saying I would always say you just don't know what's around the corner. And while you're able to, and you've got the ability to and the desire to, enjoy your retirement. Don't hold back. And that for me now is you don't know what's around the corner, and so I'm going to do it. So yeah, so there's some good has come out of it as well.
There has to be good that comes out of it, and the good that comes out of it is, I'm going to get really cheesy now, and this is not like me, is you have to see what really matters, and what really matters is that the people you love, the things that you care about, the stuff you enjoy doing. It's really not that complicated. It becomes those, yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think, it's almost a cliche to say, but I genuinely do mean it. If at least one person hears this and does something about it, then job done, James. So, thank you for sharing it. It's, it's a hugely important message.
No, we're not at all. Thanks. And I just really appreciate having the opportunity to. Thanks ever so much for inviting me on. Family, friends that will be listening to this, God bless you all. Thank you so much for what you did for me. I'll never, ever forget it.